stream is just about to start. We are live and you may begin whenever you're ready, Michael.
Awesome. Welcome to tonight's August 20th, 2024 Full Design Review Board meeting. I'm going to call us to order. We have a quorum of 8 out of 9 members. Do I hear a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
There's a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Motion passes 8-0. Staff, do we have some meeting minutes we need to approve?
Yes, we have July 16th, July 23rd, July 30th, August 6th, and August 13th meeting minutes.
All right, do I hear a motion to approve July 16th, July 25th, July 30th, August 6th, and August 13th meeting minutes?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
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 All right, motion passes 8-0. All right, I'm looking for any general member comments that do not pertain to any applications tonight. Feel free to raise your hand, virtual hand, real hand. If you have anything you want to say, we're a public meeting for any Reston Association members. All right, I don't see any. Staff, correct me if I'm wrong. All right.
No hands
Good.
raised.
All right, we will start with our first agenda item, which is item F, which is Southbridge Cluster for a landscaping plan, stormwater runoff. So is the representative for Southbridge here?
Yes, and Sarah, you are unmuted.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, I'm here. I'm the managing agent from TWC.
Great. So Sarah, walk us through, or first let me ask that staff, it looks like there was a decision made and then it was determined that we wanted to have just the full DRB look at this. Is that so we're reviewing this de novo. It's not like an appeal or a deferral or anything. It's just a
De novo review, correct.
Okay. All right, go ahead, Sarah. Sorry.
Oh, no, it's okay. So as you do know, we were at the August 6th DRB meeting and had discussed that with the panel at that time. Basically, this process started at the legal committee process as we got a complaint from one of our owners over at the Southbridge cluster. Due to that, we had gone through that process and the legal committee and basically had decided that this is what they had asked Southbridge cluster to do, which is to do soil stabilization and install some ground cover. So that is exactly what we are trying to accomplish. So based on the proposal we have from Premium, which has been signed since last December, we're going to go ahead and do some work back there, which is to take 4 to 6 feet back from the fence lines, go ahead and kind of take some of that ground cover out at the base there, do some soil stabilization and some slight regrading in the area to bring it back to the original grade, and then make basically a very kind of small swale at the base to kind of catch any kind of rainwater coming off the hill there. That is what they have proposed to do, and that's kind of where it is. You can see the photos there and what we're looking at doing. That's kind of it in a nutshell.
Okay, but you're just putting back down ground. You're putting down grass. You're not putting down any stone or anything.
No, so at this point we're just gonna be putting down, once we finish, like a straw and then the seeding basically when it comes to the fall, stuff like that, to basically get some grass growing back in there, which will be done because it's a very good area to get grass growing. But that's what we're planning on doing at this point.
Okay. Staff, is there an affected party I see?
Yes, we have multiple affected parties. The first affected
So
party.
let me so for affected parties, you have 3 minutes to state your affected party status, and staff is keeping that time. If you're representing a group, just mention that ahead of time and you can have 5 minutes. All right, sorry, LaShonda, go ahead.
Sure, no problem. I see Ms. McFalls. Give me 1 second. It's not giving me the prompt to ask her to unmute. Give me one moment. Okay, I'm asking Susan to unmute now. Susan, you're unmuted.
Wait a minute. No.
And we can hear you.
Well, we could. I think she remuted herself.
Just sent you another prompt to unmute yourself. Susan, you're unmuted.
Is that better?
Yes,
Yep.
ma'am, we can hear you.
All right, now. Okay.
All right, so walk us through your affected party status, and you have 3 minutes to do so, okay?
I sent you a paper. Is that what you have up on the screen there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. As I understand it, you want to deal with a 90-foot area directly behind the Sagewood townhouses. My question is, why wouldn't you do it above, since the water's coming from Belmont Ridge through that one open space between townhouses number 1935 and 1937? Why wouldn't you do something there, create a swale or coming down to a trench that took it out to the Sagewood Lane over near a Thoreau place? Why not do it up there? That's where the water is coming to. Why wait till it drops over the hillside and it gets more forceful and stuff and drops down and sits in the mud behind us? Just raise it up to the top. Do it behind the townhouses, townhouse fence line behind Belmont Ridge. And a second question is, when you did the asphalt paving back in 2021, August of 2021, did somehow the contour of the paving area up there in front of all those townhouses on Belmont Ridge that gets the water from Thoreau Place as well as off South Lakes, just right there at the Sagewood entrance, that's a lot of water on a lot of asphalt, and most of it comes right to that open space because that's the entry point for all the stuff coming off Thoreau Place and off South Lakes. Why can't we stop it there? When did we know that the contour down here had changed? I mean, if you're saying that the contour behind the back of the houses had changed, when did that happen? And why are we waiting? It's been 3 years now since we've come up, or since I mentioned it, and we're now coming up with a plan. What took so long? And also, what is this retaining wall at the back of the cul-de-sac on a Sagewood cul-de-sac? What is that retaining wall? When did it come there? Why was it put there? Why wasn't it brought all the way across the mid-hill section to stop that water? I mean, it's the yards, it's not the cul-de-sac that gets the water. That's a problem.
Pardon me, Ms. McFalls. That is time.
Good.
All right, thank you. Michelle, do you have another one, I think?
Yes.
Hello.
Ms. Kim, your 3 minutes will start now.
Hello, I'm Olivia Kim from 1946 Sagewood Lane. I wanted to, so I was there for the initial review of this area. After that, the initial design review, the comments were that we need to understand the grading of this area because the slope is so intense. To understand what swale is being provided, we need a topographic map to understand where the water is meant to be going to. So in my information that I provided with my supporting documents, I looked at the Fairfax County GIS to show you how steep this hill is. The proposal is to remove 4 to 6 feet of soil, and I hear that it's meant to be regraded to the same slope. The current slope is too steep to be stabilized by seeding and straw. That would just wash out at its current slope. But if you're reducing the amount of square footage affected, you're going to increase the slope, and you're going to have even a harder time stabilizing with straw. I mean, straw is not an appropriate response to stabilizing this hill. It's going to be barren. All of the ivy is going to be taken out, and it's not going to be structurally sound, and all of those trees are going to be in question. It's a risk, I think, to not support this hill in some way and to destabilize it when you remove all this English ivy. At the original design review board, the landscape architect on the board said that this ivy is structural at this point, and I feel that that's what I've seen from how extensive ivy can be and how overgrown the ivy is in this area. So I feel that this needs to be reviewed with the understanding that this hill needs to be stabilized or these trees are at a risk to our property, and that's a great danger. I also think the question of where does the water flow is a question down to topography level where we need to actually have information about what is being proposed, because you can't just leave a barren, unsupported, unstabilized hill going to a swale that's just a mud puddle, and it's going to continue to puddle behind our houses. And with nothing to stabilize it, the soil will wash out and continue to be puddles behind our property. So I feel the same frustration as my neighbors feel, that we've been dealing with so much flooding that causes damage to our our house value, and that's certainly something that our HOA is meant to protect us from, and yet here we constantly have standing water against our property, and yearly we have to deal with water damage both inside our property but also outside of our property because we have standing water against our fence line, and we have rotting fences constantly because there's just standing water on the resident association side of the property that we can't mitigate on a lot-to-lot basis. It's certainly a stormwater management issue that affects all of us, which speaks to the complexity of it, but that's why it needs to be done properly. I fear that we are looking to take the cheapest route and easiest route, and this is too complex of an issue and risks tree falling.
Pardon me, but that is time. Thank you.
Thank you.
I was unable to identify the next affected party. So Mandeep Bawat, if you are present, could you please raise your hand? Seeing no hands raised, I will move on to the next affected party. Yvonne and Steve Wild, you've been unmuted.
Hello? Yes, can you hear us?
Yes.
Yeah, it's detailed in how would you say, the statement that I sent in. We were very concerned about where the drainage is going to go off, because many times it floods our backyard. It washes enough mud on my back of the fence where I can't open the fence. I have to make trips up there to dig out the fence so the neighbor could come in and out of the back of the fence, and I don't want any flooding on the side of our house. Two, we had a concern, the first proposal said there's going to be a swale, but there was no mention in the second proposal about a swale. You need to have some kind of swale in the back to collect the drainage, and if we're going to have one, is it going to be filled with stone? And my other concern was they're going to put grass seeds on there. Are they going to just throw grass and cover it with hay, where we've been there many times where it was heavy rains, it's going to wash those seeds away. They need to put down that hay blanket and make sure it's properly attached to the ground so it doesn't blow over. And it's biodegradable, where it takes 3 months up to 3 years and to help keep the grass in place so it doesn't wash away, and it's biodegradable. But yeah, I have to agree. It seems like this is the cheapest route. And if you could try to switch places with us, or if you want, you can move in our place for like 2 years and see how it feels. And But we spent over $4,000 with flood damage, ripping up carpet, taking the trips up there to address the flood damage. I'm like, I even bought my own personal fan that blows under the carpet. God forbid it happens again, because it's very time consuming. I don't know. Or if the mud,
Got to put some kind of wall barrier.
otherwise I'll
there.
scoop the mud in a bucket and come to your house and put it on your front yard. It's so you can see how we're feeling. We all share the same concern. I don't want a cheap haphazard job, and then we're readdressing the issue 3 or 4 years from now when all the vegetation is being washed down, and again the trees in the back, the root system is being upended, or it's getting weak. Then what do we do if a tree falls on a house? Well, then
We're
there's going to
gonna
be
have
a
to pay
big
for that.
investigation of how it fell, and then it's all going to come down to you guys. So I just, hopefully this is done properly, where the seeds are put down, there's a hay blanket put down, and you have a swale in the back to allow with the drainage. Or maybe they should put a French drain and tap it into 1950. There's a sewer system there, so it goes down there. You just dig it up,
1949.
or 1949.
To
but-
have it,
But do you understand what we're saying? Do a French drain in the back.
you got to take care of things.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Wild. That was the last affected party.
Okay. Just to be clear, staff, this is on cluster property, right? Not Reston Association?
That is correct.
Okay, so just for all the affected parties, just to let you guys know, we are the design review board. We are not affiliated with your cluster at all. We are an independent entity from even Reston Association. We're volunteers, so we are not the ones making the proposal for what is in front of us. We are here to, vote on it, on whether we feel like that it's adequate based on what was deferred to us from a previous meeting. So I just felt like I was being yelled at. I didn't design this. I'm just here to review it. So I just want to make sure that it's clear. It sounds like you guys have TWC who manages your cluster. That's who's providing the proposal in front of us today. Just
Okay, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
just relay that message back to them.
Yeah, relay the message back to them.
Okay, thank you. So if we go back to TWC, was that Sarah? No,
Yes.
Sarah.
Sarah,
So
There,
the proposal is just from basically a landscape company, correct? I mean, do they have any sort of?
I think we
Yeah,
need
so-
the state to
I'm sorry, hold on, Ms. McFalls. Yes, Premium Landscape does have drainage experience. They have done projects through Reston. I know I work with them personally on Ridgewood Cluster on several drainage issues over there. I want to just point out a couple things. We are, first to clarify, we are not removing all of the ivy on the entire hill. Well, that is not something we are planning to do. We are just doing 4 to 6 feet back there to kind of make it into a little bit more of a space for the owners to have back there, a small swell to catch the rain. On top of that, we are really just trying to fulfill what Reston Association has already asked the association to do, which was the soil stabilization and installing the ground cover. Now, that's what we were asked to do. That's what we're trying to accomplish so that we can get out of the legal committee process. And if we need to look at this a different way, we're certainly able to do that. But none of these owners have come to a meeting recently. We haven't heard from the owners of 1950 on this personally. They don't come to the board meetings. Please come to the board meetings. Talk to the board directly. This was just kind of, they did send emails and we were aware. We've had some board changes since then. We're realistically just trying to kind of go through the process to get us out of the legal committee process and kind of hopefully kind of end this whole process, unfortunately.
Okay. So, well, that was what I was going to ask, because it feels like most clusters, so a lot of community, obviously Reston, we have a lot of terrain. We have a lot of covered, areas that there's been overgrowth or debris, and just, where a lot of these developments are all 30 to 50 years old. So they need maintenance. If it's not being done, it just, stuff happens, right? Most clusters come in with kind of a more robust solution for when there's this steep of a hill from a drainage perspective. They would have kind of a river jack stone kind of creation with a swale with a hard pipe underneath of it to really take away a lot of this water, rather than trying to basically kind of regrade the property like this was a brand new development, where when there's already people's backyards and houses, it's really hard to get a proper slope from their house back. So I have a feeling that's kind of why a lot of them are just, they're a little upset because it just feels like it's not really going to help solve the issue.
So when I don't disagree, Mr. Wood, and sorry for kind of plugging
No,
in,
you're-
and we're at this point, we don't disagree. There's something going on back there. But instead of allowing the association to take the time to go through and maybe have an engineer come out and take a look, Rustin, they went ahead and went and did the covenants department, complaint, which is fine. They have every right to do so, but it has tied the association's hands on what we can do. Now, again, we know there's probably more back there that we need to do, but we're trying to adhere to what was completely, what was requested of us, which if you go back to the original violation letter is just the ground cover and soil stabilization. And I hate to continue to kind of go harp on that, but that's what Rustin Association has asked us to do. That is what we're hoping to just accomplish to close this portion out. And maybe we will continue to, communicate with the owners, have them into a board meeting, try to look at what we can do to kind of negate this issue. We're kind of interested in seeing the difference in the rear yard of 1942 is higher than 1944, which is also contributing. We probably need to do something with the downspouts back there. There's a lot of different things we want to do, but right now we're just trying to get the association out of the legal committee process, which is what we're in now.
Okay. And staff, correct me if I'm wrong, if we're in legal, or if they're in legal and they have an application into us because to solve the legal issue, they're ultimately legal referred it to us so we can help come to the best solution, correct? Is that
Correct. Correct. So so once the DRB has rendered a decision, then it'll go back to legal. And legal has asked for a shorter period of time for these things to be implemented.
Okay. So but basically they're okay right now for they're in the process with us and we can kind of amend the solution. Because ultimately legal is asking us to come up with this, or not, covenants is asking us to help approve the solution. So therefore, to me, they're trusting us to help potentially amend what is presented.
That is correct.
Okay. Let me go around the room and see if anyone has any questions. And then we'll go from there. Sarah, did you have any questions for the applicant?
No, not at this time.
John, did you have any questions for the applicant?
No,
Brian, did you have any questions?
No questions.
Camelia, did you have any questions?
No questions.
Elena? Elena, are you still here?
Sorry, I'm here. Sorry.
You're
Couldn't
good.
my mute button. I couldn't find it. No questions. Thank you.
Okay. Mike?
I got a couple. Can we start with the slide? I think it's page 34, folks.
I was hoping you would say something, Mr.
Yeah, I'm in,
Someone
Mike.
here.
I'm in, Mr. Wood. All right, so that is that an accurate, I guess let's start with for the applicant here. Is that an accurate depiction of the area that we're trying to address? That box there? It's just that run of homes, correct?
I can't speak to this because I haven't really had a chance to review this. Mike, you have to understand we just kind of got this information late last week. And so we haven't had a time for even the board to consult through this information. We really wanted to see if we could push this to have more time kind of go through everything. But
Okay.
But Mike, I do, but based on what I'm reviewing, those are the subject properties.
That's what I thought.
That is, and it's it's whatever, a 15 foot slope essentially over, I don't know the distance between the houses, but it's a 15 foot
and
over
it's-
what looks to be 60 feet of, space. 70
Yeah, the
feet.
bit of context there overlaid there in terms of the pitch of this slope. I mean, I'm not sure which individual was speaking earlier, but obviously we do have a significant gradient here, right? That's going to direct any sort of water flow down towards the back of these homes. Now, I think the original comment, right, had to do with erosion control, but it didn't necessarily stipulate how to accomplish that. So I think the concepts that have been put forward by the landscaping firm are maybe driving this a little bit. I guess my sticking point, Michael, is, and I wonder if some of the rest of the board members would hear me on this, is I think this is a significant enough issue that it needs to be studied by somebody a licensed professional who can provide some engineering guidance, some manner of drainage plans to adequately tackle what's happening here, which may or may not include some more significant grading than just a drainage swale, right? I understand that they're experienced folks. This is a contractor that does work in and around Reston. I think this may well be something that needs a little more attention, an elevated level of scrutiny than say just let's get out here, let's clean up the ivy adjacent to the fence line and, direct water away. I don't, and Michael,
Yeah, and it may be a good, maybe a starting point so we can actually see what's going on, right? Because all the growth, it's very hard to actually see even where the grade is right now. I mean, I have, you don't really know. So if that actually is supposed to be a swale, you don't know it, because there's so much growth in it.
Right.
And so maybe cleaning it up, getting the swale is not a bad thing. But what I would hate to have happen is it just be we check the box and then they never gets resolved further down the line. So that's kind of, but I agree with what you're kind of putting.
Yeah, the line of thinking there is there's got to be a fix of some kind, right? I don't know that we're at a place where we know what the fix is necessarily. I think there's a lot of concepts that are getting tossed around. Would some stone in a swale type formation along the back, as indicated on this sketch, would that be beneficial? Probably. Where's it going to be directed to? What kind of volumes are we expecting? How are we going to stabilize that hillside long term? Does that need to incorporate a larger grading plan that might incorporate a retaining wall of some kind? I think there's too many details that are still out there to be confirmed for me to feel comfortable saying this is gonna tackle it, right? Because to your point, Michael, I don't want to get down the road here, say go ahead, release this contractor to rock and roll, and then we're just going to be right back here in 3 months after the next couple of rainstorms, right?
Yeah.
Possibly. I mean, that's what we talked about as a member of the original or the past panel that looked at this. I mean, that was part of the consideration was this is the proposal they've put forward. And, we talked a lot about the inclusion of the swale because it was not in the proposal, but Sarah did talk about it, that was the intent was to create the swale to as a block for the water and stuff to get away from the neighbors' houses and things like that. And so we looked through the other proposals, not the one on the screen, but the other affected party suggested, and it was just going to be much more significant than this one was. And so what we discussed was this would be like the first attempt, possibly, like obviously we hope it works, and the inclusion of the swale and possibly the idea of adding like some rocks and some other things like that to help push the water away from the houses, I think are good additions that could be included in an approval or in a motion possibly. But we just thought that obviously the problem is significant enough that something should be done soon. And so the cluster has provided this proposal that maybe just needs a little bit of tweaking, but we thought it was worth pushing it forward at the time to get some action and some benefit to the cluster. And we understood, and we talked, and if it didn't work, we know they're going to come back
right,
and say this didn't work and we need another solution, things like that. But we thought that it was worth exploring getting it done, since this has been a very long process.
Understood. And I guess, go ahead, Michael. You were going to.
Well, no, yeah, and that's where I was more leaning towards. Is I'm not necessarily saying let's get them out of legal, because it's not what has happened is not it's only illegal because there was a complaint that then led it to go to Covenants Committee, who then then triggered it to us. It's kind of it's been a cause and effect reaction, whereas, preemptively it would have been better because they could have gone in there. Now that there's legal, they can't just go in there and clear because there's technically a legal case, right? So they can't go do work in the subject area until there's some sort of approval from us. And so that's where it puts us in a little bit of a sticky situation. Whereas if there was no legal case, they could just go in there, clear that out, try to get it back to what they thought with this inexpensive fix, right? I mean, it's very rare to find anybody do anything for $1,600, right? And so now they can't do that. But so to me, I'm leaning towards where like, well, what Mike is saying, where we potentially need to bring in, kind of a more professional who can really study the water in the existing topography and give them a proper drainage solution. I'm not saying it needs to necessarily be an engineer, but you know, to me,
Again,
if this was they'd come in with a rock swale with a pipe underneath, and it was 2 feet wide of river jack, and they put in 12 inches of gravel underneath within the pipe and the filter fabric and all that fun stuff, I don't think we would have any of these questions, right? I think
it's exactly what was running through my head, Michael, if I'm honest. I mean, and then
It's-
the question is, are you going to daylight it on the property? Are you going to connect it to the storm drain system that's apparently adjacent to this block of houses? We just got to get this thing a little bit further cooked is what it feels like.
Yeah. Okay. So, sorry, there's one. Samantha, did you have anything to add? We got off on a tangent before I could get to you.
Nothing to add.
Okay. Well, now we're kind of in further discussion anyway. So, does anyone have any further kind of thoughts, comments?
A parting thought from Mike B is just that I think there is a solution here. I think it needs a little bit more study. I think we just need some further, details in terms of how we're going to accomplish this. And I think it can get knocked out in one fell swoop. I think we got to get there.
I mean, because if we can make a motion that has a timeline to keep this thing accelerated to help make sure that this a solution is come to in a reasonable amount of time, because it's dragged on through RA's legal process, and then now has dragged on through our own board process, and then I don't want it to keep dragging on is basically the thing I'm looking for. Did Emily show up? No.
Emily did not.
No. Okay. All right. I just want to make sure I wasn't leaving anyone out. Does anyone have any thoughts? Motion?
I mean, a question for staff, if I don't mind, if I made a motion to defer action on this application pending further study for some additional details, is that something I could stipulate be seen at a lower panel to move things along faster rather than waiting a full month?
Oh, absolutely.
Then I'll restate my motion. I'll make a motion to defer action on the application pending further study to include some additional details with regard to the materials and grading associated with the new swale construction. Yeah, I'll stop there. To be seen at the next available panel level.
There's a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay. Elena seconded. Any further discussion?
I just feel like we should provide some maybe further direction in the motion. We've heard some, good proposals tonight, so like more information coming forward. That I just wonder if we could provide more of what we're looking for, and if it's going to be a deferral, since that is going to extend the timeline a little bit. I just want to see, something done for the cluster. So I feel like if we add a little bit of language, maybe Sarah and the management company can take that to their contractor and say, here's what we need. Can you provide a more thorough proposal that addresses this?
I hear you, Brian. I would amend my motion to what's the wording here? Strongly suggest that the management company and the contractor that they've engaged study the use of, as Mr. Wood called it earlier, some stone and perhaps an underdrain pipe wrapped in filter fabric or something similar to such an installation, as that could be notably beneficial for this observed condition. Assuming that that's okay, Elena.
Elena, do you accept that?
Yes.
Wording?
Yes. Thank you.
Any further discussion on that?
Did you suggest a timeline of when to come back?
Well, that's what I was going to say.
I was going to say, I said next available panel in the event that they could turn it around that fast. But if I guess maybe that's a LaShonda question. Is that, do you need me to say 30 days or 60 days?
Yeah, I mean, I think we should say 30 days to keep it. Yeah, I think 30 days is reasonable. It's not too short. It's not too long. I think we got to keep it moving.
I'd accept that 30-day window.
As
Elena,
do
you accept
I.
that? Okay. So a little discussion on it. So my only question or comment on this motion, does it make any bit of sense to allow them to do the little bit of work that they have proposed right now to clean up the there was some sort of slope at some point right under there. I'm not saying they need to regrade or do anything, but just clean it up so they can actually see. It's already going to be work that they're going to need to do anyways. Does it make sense to, I mean, we're obviously in the rainy season now. This is the only reason I'm bringing it up, does it make sense to try to help them get the work started on taking out the overgrowth and the stuff that's causing the issue right now, that's clogging up the drainage. And, in the meantime, they need to make sure to have that plan to us within the 30 days. So then if it's approved, then they're ready to go and they can act on it right away.
I mean,
just as an example.
Is there anything standing in their way, Mr. Wood, from?
You could break it up in 2 motions. You can approve like the removal and regrading, the sediment shaving, the soil, the seed, and the straw application. And then in the second motion, require additional information for the swell creation.
Well, that's almost what I was wondering is like if you did, right. So we approve this, but require, or it's partially approved or whatever, and that they're required to come back with a drainage plan within 30 days that goes back to Mike's motion and additional wording that he put. That way stuff can get started to be able to, and the legal case I think would still need to remain open, which I think is preferred for all of the residents that live there anyways, to make sure that this gets resolved. So I'm fine with that. I'm more just trying to help try to get a little bit of a it might, put a little bit of fire under them once they kind of, they know like, hey, we can get moving forward. There's some reason to keep moving forward, I guess would be my statement. So I don't know if you're open to that, Mike, or we can also just do the deferral and just require the plan within 30 days. I'm also open to that. I didn't know if it made sense. So I wanted to put it out there.
I don't necessarily have a problem with it, Michael. If the group was feeling that way, I'd like to see what the final solution is going to be here before they really start making a mess of the hillside.
That's fine with me then too. I mean, I agree. They also could make it into a big muddier mess, and it may,
right.
I'm a little concerned about that, considering how much water's coming our way.
True. Very, very true.
So
let's stick with your motion then. Let's stick with it, and let's just stick with the deferral for now, and we can vote on it, and if it passes,
see where we go.
So, all right. All those in favor, we have a motion, we have a second, we have some amendments, we have some more amendments, we had some further discussion, now we're ready to vote. So all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any against? Any deferral or any abstentions? All right, motion passes 8-0. All right, thank you. All right. Moving on to application G. We have Shores Cluster property address 2058 Lake Audubon Court.
Maggie Booth, I am sending you a prompt to ask you to unmute.
Hi, can you send it to Laura?
Sure. I don't have a Laura, but I do have David.
I think Convene Architecture is who you're looking for, LaShonda.
Okay, thank you. All right, you are unmute. I'm sending you a prompt to unmute. All right, you should be unmuted. Laura, can you hear us?
There we go. Great. Can you hear me?
Can hear you. Thank you.
Great. Thanks a lot. Thanks for unmuting me. Thanks for this meeting. And I'm just going to do kind of a brief introduction. I'm Laura Campbell. I'm also here with Jen Mailer. We're from Convene Architecture. And what I'd like to do is just sort of briefly present this project, and then we can answer any questions you have. Our clients are David Bendernagel and Maggie Booth, and they live with their family in an end unit townhouse in the Shores cluster. They've hired our firm to design a sunroom and a new deck for the rear of their home. And they are also hoping to infill a portion of their front porch to create a mudroom. In November 2023, our clients shared our designs with their neighbors and solicited feedback. After some neighbors expressed concerns, David and Maggie instructed us to redesign the rear addition, reducing the size of both the sunroom and the deck. The proposal we have here tonight shows the smaller project. The proposed sunroom is 8 feet 6 inches deep and steps back where it meets their neighbor's house. The roof and floor are designed so that new structural loads are carried only on new footings. The proposed deck is 11 feet 6 inches deep and angles to a reduced depth of 9 feet 6 inches. We have studied the sight lines of their next door neighbor's lake view and have created a diagram showing how that view would be impacted if this design is approved. I'm not sure what the best way to share this is. We could email it to you, but with this diagram, you can see the impact for their view, which is pretty minimized by the angled deck. We do understand that construction is disruptive, especially in a townhome setting, and we empathize. But at the same time, we also affirm that improving one's property so it can evolve as one's family evolves creates long-term benefits for both homeowners and their neighborhoods. We're asking the DRB to approve David and Maggie's project. We appreciate everyone's time and are happy to answer questions about this design, the details, and the process.
Okay. If you want to walk us, so Lashana, there's an affected party, I'm assuming?
Yeah, correct. And
Let's hear from the affected party, and then we'll come back and ask you guys any questions about the design, so we don't get distracted from it. So if the affected party's here, just as a reminder, you have 3 minutes to state your case, and staff is keeping that time.
Jude, you're unmuted. Your 3 minutes will start now.
Yes.
Hi, this is June Talinda. I'm an affected party residing at 2056 Lake Audubon Court. Can you hear me?
Yes.
My sister Linda is here with me.
I'm speaking for June because she's losing her voice. She's got a little laryngitis going on. So if it's okay, her townhouse is directly adjacent to the applicant's property, which sits on top of a hill connected to a row of townhomes that overlook Lake Audubon. Her concerns regarding the proposed plan, the addition would obstruct views of the natural vistas, which are key to her townhome's appeal, value. Prolonged construction would diminish its marketability and compromise the privacy and livability of her townhome. The project conflicts with the architectural guidelines that preserve the character of this townhouse cluster. The added weight of an addition could compromise the structural integrity of her townhome and adjacent townhomes, which were built in the 1980s. The construction could disrupt the local ecosystem, natural environment, affecting drainage, trees, and woodlands. Thus, she's opposed to the plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Joy. I'm sending you a prompt to unmute. Joy, you're unmuted.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak as someone who moved into Shores Cluster in 2007 after looking at dozens of homes in Reston and understanding that there's always a compromise when you move into an HOA, and there's nothing perfect, but the agreement within an HOA community, particularly a townhome community, is that the integrity of that structure will not be significantly altered. So when I look at the design of 2058, I can say this is absolutely beautiful. but it's a townhome. If this were a single family home, that is an entirely different matter. So we have to step back and ask the question, how does this application and the proposed changes serve the interest of the Shores cluster as a whole? And who benefits from this? We, as a community, our front-facing property is a parking lot, which is to say the value that we enjoy is off the back. And arguments that come up over the years are privacy issues, structural changes which impede that 180-degree view, which is where our value lies as resident, as well as the properties themselves. And we know that once a precedent is set, where does it stop? Who does it serve? What other homes are actually able to take advantage of these changes or not? The improvements in one property are not necessarily going to positively impact others. And as mentioned, we raised concerns when we were shown the application. We were sent an opinion letter, which is an opinion. It does not represent a structural analysis looking at the stability of the foundation, the quality of the concrete 42 years later. We know that we've had termites in our neighborhood. We know we've had some degree of slippage with some units. And why alter a property in an end unit where we have welcomed families with 2 children? We have welcomed families with 5 children in end units. And we do the best we can in the interior of our structure, understanding that the exterior, that is a community impact, and how does it serve other homes and the value and the quality of living it. So I ask for, again, looking at an HOA community, the expectation that the architectural integrity is preserved with reasonable upgrades, looking at changes in lighting and siding, but it's a different matter when you start changing the footprint.
Thank you, Joy. Next, we have Debbie, and she is the president of the Shores Cluster. Debbie, you've been unmuted.
Okay, thank you. Yes, we are a cluster of 22 townhomes built just above Lake Audubon. All of our units have lake views. The board of directors met to consider those elements of the homeowners' plans that seem to be in conflict with published cluster standards. And we reported in our affected party statement the results of that meeting. We did miss one item, which was the cluster board did agree to update the deck color standard. The homeowners had indicated that the Trex color gravel path had been discontinued, and they proposed a close match substitute of Whidbey. And our board, even at that special meeting, approved that. Per RA's affected party statement and exterior lights, I need to be clear that we do intend to update cluster standards for exterior lights to include the selection the homeowners made for their new lights. Okay. So that is what I have to add to our effective party statement.
Thank you, Debbie. There are no more affected parties registered for this application.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So to be clear, staff, so the cluster guidelines right now, there's no, I mean, I know most of them don't have a standard for additions, but for the deck itself, I was trying to look through their guidelines here, and their cluster approved decks are, from what I see, just have you can have ground level decks, Trex spiral stairs, elevated decks must not exceed 12 feet from the main house wall, Interior unit homes must have a minimum of 24-inch setback. Decks on end unit homes must not exceed the side bump out. And then, I mean, it's pretty clear language there for what's in their guideline. And basically the cluster is taking the stance that they do not wish to update that standard. That's accurate?
I believe what the president just stated, that she's willing to update the deck standard of as far as the color.
Just for the color, but I didn't even see that in here. Like, I don't even see where they allowed Trex, like a certain Trex color, but maybe we just don't have necessarily.
Mr. Wood, if you don't mind.
Yeah, am I on the wrong slide?
No, I live here.
Oh, okay.
I'm literally across the green space from this particular home. So
Okay.
yeah, the Trex is in there.
Okay, I just don't see it. Oh, there it is. Just kidding. Gravel path. I see it now.
Yep.
Solid. It's under the stain color, but it's not. Okay, composite material. I got you. Okay. Okay. All right, cool. So let's go back to the applicant and their architect. And I want to go around and see if anyone has any questions, and then we will go from there. So Sarah, did you have any questions for the applicant or the architect?
I have no questions, thank you.
Okay. John, did you have any questions?
No,
Brian, did you have any questions?
Well, I guess I did want to ask the applicant or the architect to talk more about the sunroom in more detail and its design and character, please.
So it's a one-story sunroom with a pitched roof. Part of the roof design was intended to assure no new roof loads were going on, the existing, all roof loads being carried on new footings. The design is really intended to give lots of views to the lake, lots of light, and to just be sort of simpatico with the existing form of the homes in this cluster.
Any other questions, Brian?
So, so the siding of the addition will match the existing house
Yes.
and roof finish
Yep.
and window trim. How will that work, especially with the windows that are on the edge of the addition where they kind of wrap the wall and the roof? How is that going to work?
So it's a skylight on the roof and window on the wall, and then the eave trim will, the trim will set back, but it's essentially going to be like an eave trim.
Are there any changes to the front landscaping? Or I guess I should say the front to side landscaping, since that is an end unit. Like, I guess what we're looking at on the right side of this picture.
Could we flip it around to show the front view? It's that we're essentially infilling the porch, and we have a small cantilever, so the landscape is not impacted on the front. And I think there may be a slide adjacent to this to show the sort of existing to new.
117, 118, 119 show some images that I think would perhaps illuminate that for you, Brian. Is that what you were getting at, Brian?
I really like the comparisons that were put in here of the existing and the proposed, and I was just wondering if this landscape design is so nice on the side. I was just curious if that was being affected at all with the addition, but it sounds like no.
It's not. Nope.
Okay, thank you. That's it, Michael.
Okay. Camelia, do you have any questions?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
Okay. Elena?
Yeah, I do have a few. So if you look at 104 of 143, slide 104, 143. I'm really not sure what that that long, I don't know what to alley of deck that goes back to the side window is gaining you? Are you planning on at some point making that window, that last window in the series closest to the front of the house, a door or something? I mean, it just looks strange to me. I'm kind of a
It's
deck
south
everywhere.
facing, and I think that Maggie and David are very serious gardeners, and I think the idea is really like herb planters, herb beds, a place for their kids to run and play. So it's not, it's only 3 feet deep, so it's
Yeah, I
not
know,
really
it
a.
kind of seems
It's really
odd.
just a place for plants.
And those the windows in the sunroom, it looks like in one, are any of them operable? I see one double hung, the one that's adjacent to the neighbor's house. But the remaining windows, are
Yep.
any of them operable?
Jen, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the 2 on the side are all the others are fixed. Thank you. Yeah. So no, they're all fixed other than the double hung window.
Recognizing that because of the trees in the neighborhood, that there's a lot of shade on those windows in the summertime. They are west facing and really can't see much. I don't know how much of the lake you can see through the trees at that time of year, but that's how, I guess it's not in our purview, but it seems to me that that's going to be a very difficult room to use in the summertime.
So I guess if
That's
you
just a
maybe if you want to
comment.
just pull up the existing room, the existing house has a lot of glass that faces the lake and faces west, and I don't think they have too much trouble using it. It's their main living room.
Yeah, they don't have skylights, and
That's the front. Yeah.
yeah, that's the front.
Let's see here.
I mean, they're substituting, I mean, they're making a greenhouse, is what they're making. So, but it's not really in our purview. It just seems like in my opinion, some articulating those window forms more so that they have this, so they don't just like look like plain going back to 143, 104, 143. So it doesn't look so much like a greenhouse addition, it looks more like a living space. Would be more in keeping with the character of the rest of the house and the rest of the neighborhood.
Okay. You have any other questions for them right now?
That's it for me. Thank you.
Okay. Mike, are you involving yourself in this?
I mean, I'm here, certainly present for discussion. Obviously, just for clarity, I live at 2060, so I am on the other side of the beautiful garden space, and so my wife and I and our daughter, we live across this green space from them, so we certainly would be, obviously we're the ones who are going to be looking at the new construction, right? So. But no, we obviously signed the application as the individuals who were, one of the folks who it was brought to. So, we've been privy to this for quite some time. So, I obviously don't have any questions, Mr. Wood. So,
okay.
I'm here for any discussion though.
Okay, Samantha.
So for the front entrance, we didn't discuss a lot. I would not not in favor of it, but I do want to ask that, so by doing a font to enclose that porch, originally the main entrance is entering to the kind of kitchen area, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you move the front entrance outwards and then took down a window and the existing main entrance.
Yes.
I see. Okay. I have no further
It might be
questions.
helpful to show the model, the view that's right next to this one of the existing model. That way you can really clearly see the difference. There it is. So that's the existing. So the front door into the kitchen is the side, you turn on the porch to get into it.
Yeah, and if you go to slide 107, it kind of shows a floor plan, so you can get a better idea of how it internally works and why there's like the clear story of windows versus windows along that side. It looks like they're going to have some sort of built-ins or something for, I'm sure, coats, shoes, etc.
Exactly.
Yeah. So does that help?
And it's
Samantha?
funny that you
Yes.
said the sunroom looks like a greenhouse. It's actually a reading house. So it's got a lot of built-in it's space for reading, and desk space is actually how they envision using it.
Okay, Samantha, do you have any other questions for her right now?
No, I do not.
Okay. So what I have a couple questions, and basically I'm just working off of what the big thing that we like here in Reston is have the clusters govern themselves, because if we don't let them govern themselves, then we have to review thousands of applications. And so there are one-off instances where we have, applications like this, and I think that was part of the kind of affected party nature of the statements is, you are in a townhome community or a cluster, whatever we want to call it. And so there's certain levels of guidelines that we ask that if there are these unique applications to come in, that they're designed for those, between those guidelines that are given. So like one thing that to me is clear as day in the guidelines, it says, the deck shall go no farther than 10 or 12 feet past your rear wall of your house, as an example. So is there a way that, the sunroom, there are no guidelines about. So the sunroom, to me, I think it's designed nicely. I think it fits in with the architecture of the home. To me, something like that could happen, but the deck explicitly goes against what the guideline says about the 12 feet, as an example. So that it also says the deck cannot go out past the side of your house. You've met that guideline. You've kept it behind that bay window. I would say that you've stayed within the guideline to that extent. The one big one that's sticking for me, though, is that deck space. Unfortunately, I think it's some give and take, that if you guys do want the sunroom or the reading room, that potentially, to stay within the cluster guidelines, that deck needs to be no more than 12 feet from the back wall of the existing house. And therefore, you're still in compliance with your cluster guidelines. That's just kind of my first initial comment. I think the materials, it looks like the railing you're proposing is not in the guidelines yet. But did I hear inklings, and Mike, maybe you can speak on it, that they want to add that style railing to the guidelines? Is that what I heard correct?
So I'll be honest, I'm not on the cluster board, so
Okay.
I don't know what they've got cooking in terms of the particular railing systems. I saw that the architect just threw their hand up. Perhaps they can speak to. This might just be a rendering. There we go. I was going to say.
I think it's a black railing is what they're proposing,
Okay.
right? A black kind of wrought iron looking aluminum railing.
So do you mind, I raised my hand actually about your last point. I just want to clarify one thing. So the cluster guideline has this 12 feet. We weren't actually clear whether that was from the main house or from a house, but the deck that's currently on their house is 14 feet 8 inches and was approved by the DRB, I think, in 2015. And so their deck, for instance, the existing deck does not meet this 12-foot standard, and nor do many decks in the cluster. So we didn't take that as hard and fast. So just to share with you kind of our thinking when we did the design. On the railing, so our clients would like to have a sort of no maintenance rail. The cluster standards have recently allowed for this circular stair with a black metal rail. And so we selected a rail that would sort of match that. I think there's some, it sounds like maybe they don't like the black, but it seems like they're thinking about that, the cluster.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the railing goes with the stair that they have approved. So that was kind of where I was leading with that. To me, it makes sense to do the black railing. I think it aesthetically works with the home, and with the fact that you're a lakefront property, it helps it disappear. So once again, though, it's kind of all it says about railings in their applications. They just have the standard, wood picket. Wood picket. I guess they have two options for the wood picket in the guidelines, which that potentially what most people do is they somehow get their cluster guidelines changed is usually what most people do.
We've also wondered about doing a cable rail in terms of if the goal is really transparency, for the cluster. That's another sort of way to achieve that.
Yeah. And that's where, unfortunately, the way, and even I've had, when I don't live in a cluster anymore, but when I lived in a cluster before, and I was on the design review board and I wanted to put in a different light that I thought aesthetically was way nicer than all the lights that existed in my guidelines, I got denied because it didn't meet my cluster guideline. And so it's a way that we can help the clusters police themselves, because if not, there's going to be so many applications. So the deck situation, if you have an existing deck that was 14'8", I do think you could come back in with that exact same dimension from the rear wall of the house, and I would be willing to accept that. I think extending it beyond that, where a guideline, like if you came in and said, hey, my deck is 14'8", I'm not changing that, we're just putting a sunroom on top of it, then I think that we could get there a little bit better. And I think potentially that would alleviate some of the neighbors' concerns, as well as the deck goes out farther. People go out farther, just like you said, the neighborhood, you said that the homeowners like plants. What if all of a sudden they do a bunch of planters along the edge of the deck there, and then all of a sudden now they're blocking all of the view of, from the neighbor. I'm just throwing hypotheticals out there, right? And so that's where I think we're trying to stay within the guidelines. I think that the sunroom overall is designed nicely. I think the addition out front, it fits in well with the style of the home. I don't see any issue with it. The front door, it sounds like, once again, the clusters, I thought they said they were thinking of adding that style to the cluster guideline from what I remember, but I could be off on that. I'm okay with the door. I think it does fit into the style of architecture that these houses are. So in all of those contexts, I think my only biggest sticky point, honestly, is the deck, because it goes against what guidelines I have to rule on for this cluster. And the sunroom is a little bit more open, and the addition is a little bit more open because there are no guidelines for us to go against. So we then, as the DRB, can make the determination. So those are just kind of my comments, thoughts. Did everyone have a chance to ask questions? Elena?
Well, I have some comments as well. I mean, I made some comments when there were supposed to be questions, but I live in a townhouse cluster, and people over time have changed the elevations of and massing of their homes in keeping with the vocabulary of the cluster, and it hasn't, in my mind, it hasn't changed the character of the cluster. Things don't always have to be cookie cutter identical. And there are numerous clusters on Lake Thoreau and Lake Audubon where people have put additions on townhouses on the lakefront and it hasn't architecturally detrimentally impacted the look of the cluster. So, I agree that the cluster standard is silent on additions and such, but I don't think just because, and this is just an opinion for the board that I wanted to voice, I don't think just because someone's in a cluster means that they can't, someone's in a townhouse, an attached home cluster, means therefore they can't add on to their home as long as it's in keeping, architecturally with the neighborhood. I don't think they should be have less than opportunity to improve their home than someone who's in a single family, just by nature of you can't add on. So I support them doing an architecturally compatible addition. I appreciate Michael Wood's comments about the deck itself not being able to extend beyond the home. I believe the standard meant the original back wall and not an added on back wall. So I would support a motion that allowed the applicant to further study how they might use their backyard and stairs down to it rather than having a deep deck.
Yeah, like I'm looking at it, the addition is 8'5" from the rear wall. So, they could still get, if it was, let's say we go to the 14'8", let's say that's surveyed and is shown on a existing plat, that's where the deck is, right? They could still have 6'3" of a deck space. Right now it's at 8'5" and then goes out another 3. It's like another 11 and a half feet. Taking off about 5 feet of that, give or take. I know it's not as usable of a deck, but you've kind of, to me, it's like you've used up your space that you're allowed, that the cluster is wanting people to build out on. It's just like if the neighbor next door, they wouldn't want them to go build a deck that's 20 feet out from their back wall, because then that's basically essentially what they have right now, is it's 20 feet total from back of wall to the end of the deck. If their neighbor did that, that would not be ideal for them if they go out there and see a 20-foot long deck that's going all the way out toward the water, blocking their view that way, right? And so, the cluster has these guidelines. The architecture was stepped to begin with to allow for these views from multiple homes to the water. And so that's where I would be okay with the 14'8" and not enforce the 12 because it's already existing condition. I'm also okay. If the cluster, is okay with the railing, then I would think that, I think design wise, it makes sense with the stairs, with the fact that they have the spiral stair option with the black railing. I think it aesthetically fits in. I think a cable rail might also fit in. Maybe the applicant can look at doing a cable rail with wood 4x4 posts, so that way it kind of is like the original railing that's proposed, that's approved right now. I don't know, but I agree, Lena. I think restudying the deck portion, but we could give, in my opinion, I would be okay with doing a motion to approve the additions as submitted, but require the deck to be further studied in accordance with the cluster guidelines.
Can I ask one question before, as the applicant's architect?
Mm-hmm.
So there are decks in this community that come out 20 feet. Though they have been approved. So does that change anything about how you feel?
The tough thing is I don't know if they're approved. Like, if you guys can go around with staff and document that there's an existing condition of pre-existing conditions of where there's a standard in this neighborhood to have 20-foot decks that go against their guideline, then, and you guys want to do that legwork, absolutely, you can show that. I think that would be beneficial. And I think that would also educate the cluster board as well, because I think they don't realize that. Right. And so that's ultimately who's kind of going up against you. And that's who we want to have be enforcing their own guidelines. So if they want to improve, if they want to adjust those after you guys prove, there's only 20, what did you say, Mike, 22 houses, 23 houses?
Yeah.
It's not it wouldn't take you that long, right? You
Yeah,
could
and I think the
probably go around
guideline,
and look at them.
yeah, I think the
Not a
guideline
big
was only
neighborhood.
established a few years ago, if I have my, so maybe they're grandfathered, but not under this new guideline.
Yeah, and the new guideline may have been, somebody just thought they were all 12 feet. In reality, they were all 16 feet. And they the wrong numbers in, and then maybe the best way is to try to champion for an increase in depth for the guidelines based on your findings. But that's ultimately, to me, I don't have any of that information of what else is out there unless you present it to me, or if you guys ask staff to find what decks have been approved and what the depths are on them. And you guys can do that part. That's why I think the further study on the deck is warranted because of those reasons.
That makes sense.
So if there's not any further discussion, I'll make a motion if you guys are okay with that.
Mike,
Yep, go ahead, Brian.
Sorry, I hate to cut you off, but I think we should talk about the sunroom a little bit more. I think that's right now, to me, the sunroom does not feel like it's part of the house. I appreciate that a couple of the moves that they have made to set it back and to pull it back away so that it's less kind of obtrusive to the neighbor. But to me, it feels so foreign with the rest of the house. I understand we want to maximize the light and everything like that, but I just wonder if there's a way to still get like big openings or something like that, but that somehow ties more into what's already there. Like, I guess I'm just kind of looking at the elevations and kind of want them to use what's there a little bit more, possibly as a way to help this feel like part of the house. Like if things start to align or something like that. I actually think, I'm wondering if it would be best. I'm trying to go to the plan 107. I almost wonder if that little window by the desk should even be there. I wonder if that, sadly, it matches the existing house windows the best, but I almost don't think it should be there because it is kind of maybe like a privacy issue for the neighbor and stuff like that. And I think you're going to get plenty of light from the windows on I'll call it Plan West and Plan South. So I know that sort of contradicts the discussion previously, but to me, that's what's jumping out pretty significantly. I don't mind the addition. I love the idea of how it's going to be used and everything like that. But to me, it just doesn't seem to fit in very well. I think it might just need to be looked at a little more closely.
Brian, which window, can I ask? I was trying to follow
So
you.
The window that's right, but yeah, where the cursor is, the one by the
gotcha.
desk.
Yep.
I'm almost
I'm with
wondering
you.
if that window should be there. I know this is a minor issue, a minor point, but just looking at the perspectives and almost the kind of elevation views around the back, I just wonder if that one is really necessary. Sadly, it's a double hung window that matches the style of the other windows, so I hate to take it away because it's the only window that matches. But I don't know, maybe it would just, unless there's some significant meaning behind that location, I wonder if that could be a place to take that away so that the sunrooms just let the sunroom kind of have the larger openings. But to me, I don't know. They just don't feel kind of compatible with the existing design. So I just wonder if it's worth some additional study on that.
Brian, if you go to 10, or I guess, where are we at? 102, does that kind of tell your story a little better? If we,
yeah, that window directly adjacent to the sunroom extension. That's just an example of where things are just kind of moving all over the place, and I just wonder if there's a way to make everything kind of tied together a little bit better if we could look at some of those, alignments or things like that. Anyways, just my opinion.
I mean, I actually think it might, to me, I'm sure the desk wants the window. That's kind of why it's there. I actually think it would look better as having no, being a casement probably, because in that way, either
Without
no
it being
window
double
or
hung?
like a
Yeah.
casement to kind of cut down the busyness of it. The way I'm viewing this is it's a sunroom slash, like let's say this is a screen porch or it's a 3-season room. It has a little bit of a unique kind of, quirky design, but I kind of like how that works with, the design of these houses are a little quirky. They have interesting roofs. They have some weird bumps that then have slope tops on them. Like I don't think it's so far off from the existing architecture. And I think that the sunroom it gives you a little bit of leeway on design. And I think they did something that's, to me, aesthetically, it's unique. And I think it's pleasing to me. And so I think it works well with the house, but that window, one way or the other, I don't think it impacts me one way or the other, whether it's there or not. I see what you're saying, but I don't know if it really matters. I think Elena has a point on it.
Yeah, actually my concern was that I think Michael's saying that in the busyness of it, I think my concern was that there was an attempt to blend in with the existing house with that double hung, and then you go to the large openings. I think you're right. A casement would go one way or the other. Make it look like a screened-in porch that got glassed in or not. And putting a double hung there is kind of odd. So I think a casement would fit better. So, and I think, Brian's nodding. I'm not sure if that means he agrees.
I think
It's
you all are
definitely
making
giving
good
that vibe.
points. I'm open to it. I think you're making good points.
So I think that if you were to make such a motion, I would want to amend it to make that a casement so that the addition held together uniformly.
Okay. Does anyone else want to say anything before?
And I personally, I think that the mudroom addition is a great addition in terms of plan and an elevation. It blends very well. And I think that we haven't had a lot of talk about it because it does blend so well.
Yeah, agreed. To me, it's a unique solution for a tight entryway, and I think that's, sometimes that's all you can do, and it's. But once again, I think it fits in with the architecture of the home. So, so what I'm gonna do, I'm make a motion to approve the application with the following amendments: that the addition on the rear of the home have a casement window in lieu of the double hung to stay consistent with the overall window design for the sunroom / 3-season room, and that the deck be restudied to be more in keeping with the cluster standards and guidelines, and allowing the applicant for further study on existing conditions that may or may not sway the cluster guideline in the future. So, and the front addition approved as submitted.
I'll second.
Is there any further discussion on that? All right, all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Against? Abstention?
Nay.
Nay by Samantha. Abstention?
Mike B abstains.
All right, so the motion passes 6 to 1 to 1. All right, thank you guys.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to application H2270 Hunterswood Plaza. I believe this is for the Burger King to McDonald's.
I was gonna say McDonald's, Michael, not Burger King.
Well, no, it was Burger King. Burger King to
Yeah,
McDonald's. Long live the king.
Man, it's been a while since those commercials were on.
So I do have the applicant unmuted. Tammy.
Hi.
Hi. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Okay, so we did make some hopefully improvements, do you think, to the elevations, and we sent them in to Patrick, which I believe are on the new I'm not sure which page if you scroll through. Oh, you took a picture of my okay, cool. All right, so I did send in some actual photos of McDonald's we did complete this year. And these are some of the new designs that we have. The new elevations are in the package that was also sent. But these are the actual materials, and the material board I sent in at the top, there it is. That's going to be the paint color all the way to, well, the right of my screen. And then the wood grain is a little darker than, I couldn't actually get one of the battens, but that was as close as I could get for the color of the wood. And then the darker surrounds of the Apolloc metal, and across the top of the building in the front is that darker gray color. And above is just the awning colors, the white, the dark brown, and the yellow. So I think if we have in the package, there are elevations, new elevations that we designed, that Michael designed for us.
Yes, this is Michael Driga from Balzer Associates. I'm one of the architects who's worked on the project.
Here we go.
Yeah, so could you just walk us through kind of the new materials that you got? I mean, obviously we've had a departure from the painted brick and masonry and stuff. So can you kind of walk us through kind of what you're thinking here?
Certainly. So, in keeping with some of the feedback to break up a lot of the flat surfaces, we're using Apolloc panel and hardy siding, as well as utilizing some of those aluminum battens to break up the large face, especially on that front elevation. In keeping with the comment to update the color scheme, since the original was so dark, we lightened it up, went for a lighter gray. And if you look at our exhibit, we also included some digital close-up representations of what the material would look like. So you can see in kind of like more detail what the texture will look like for that for the hardy plank siding, the aluminum batten wood grain, as well as the brick veneer that we have in mind. In addition,
where's the brick veneer going?
The brick veneer is going on the existing dumpster location.
Gotcha.
Trash wall, yeah.
That's the only place it's going, is the enclosure.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. And that's like a thin brick that you're just going to apply to the outside wall and then put like a new cap or something on top, or coping or something on the top.
Yeah, so the existing construction is CMU with a nominal 4-inch brick veneer. So we are proposing to keep it exactly the same. We're just reconstructing it with this new brick, same sort of construction type.
Okay. All right. Cool.
If you flip to our materials list, we also include some photographs of what the canopy and underscores would look like. I believe it's the next page. Yep, it's that one. So that's what a gold underscore with the white aluminum canopy looks like. As well as you get a picture of one of the downlights in there. In addition, you can see, so on the next page, you can see some representations of what the glazing and storefront framing will end up looking like. So that we have a sample of the extra dark bronze, as well as a picture of what that color looks like on an actual McDonald's location. And as well, we included a picture of the railing paint color, which is just an umber gray. And so if, once you take all those materials, if you go to our colored elevations, for the most part, a good portion of it is that lighter hardy plank. So like that lighter gray, to really lighten up those elevations from last time. For this particular proposal, we would remove the existing facade materials and replace them with all new material. So footprint remains the same, it's just the facade and skin of the building changes.
And we moved the McDonald's logo sign from the side of the building to the back over the trash corral as suggested.
Yep.
Yeah, I noticed that. Thank you. I think it just worked. I think
Yeah.
people actually see it.
Exactly.
I'm more helping you. That's how I like to look at it. Let me go around, see if anyone has any questions. Staff, do we have any affected parties? I know there was some kind of that registered before, but nobody spoke last time. Is there anyone that you see?
No,
Okay.
they are not present. Thank you.
Okay. Let me go around the room, see if there's any questions for you guys, and then we'll come back. Sarah?
No questions. Thank you.
John?
No questions. Looks like they've done what we requested with the previous review.
Brian?
No questions. I agree with John. I appreciate the effort put in by the design team and the owner and the applicant on this one. I think that this will tie in better with the existing shopping center and is a big improvement. So thank you.
Camelia?
Camelia dropped off.
I knew she might have had to leave early. Okay, so just for the record, we have 7 members now. Still have a quorum. Elena?
No questions.
Mike?
Nothing for me, sir. Thank you.
Samantha?
No questions, thank you.
All right. The only question I had is the whatchamacallit? I think the materials all work well. I think the awnings do well. I think the big one that I just want to point out that, the pictures, and I think it's an improvement, but the pictures you sent in are actually of it looks like of a darker, like they don't have this like kind of taupe brown. They're more of it looks like it's black on that one. And it even looks like it's a darker gray maybe, or it's tough with some of the lighting. It's kind of hard to see. I think this is a much better improvement what you've proposed than even with the pictures you sent in. So I think it'll turn out really nice. And I appreciate you guys working with us to try to, kind of give life to this new building and while still, staying within our, kind of parameters. So I think it turned out really well. And so good effort on your guys' part for sure. Does anyone have any comments? Does anyone want to? Any questions? You guys didn't amend anything with the site, right? That's all still the same as proposed before. There was I think one or two additional lights, but the photometric and everything is the same, right? From before, none of that changed.
Correct. Yep.
So does anyone else have any comments? Motion? I mean, I'll make a motion. Why not? I'll motion to approve the application as submitted, including the signage as well, because I know that was a little unclear whether they were coming in with that before, but I'll include the signage as well in that because they have the details on that.
Second.
There's a motion second. Any further discussion? All right. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any against? Any abstentions? All right, motion passes 7-0. Thank you guys,
very
appreciate it.
much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hopefully it turns out well and corporate will keep buying Burger Kings, right?
Exactly. Thank you.
Sounds good. Have a good night.
Thank you.
You too.
All right. I am not seeing anything else. The staff, is that correct? What?
That is correct. That is the last item on the agenda.
Cool. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Do I hear a second?
Second. We'll beat you.
All right.
I beat
All
you.
those in favor, say aye.
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 All right, guys. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Good
Thank you,
night.
Sarah. Thank you, LaShonda. Thank you, Patrick.
Oh, thank you so much, Michael. Before you go, are you available on September the 12th at 6:30 to present feedback from the public hearing concerning the design guidelines? We're
I am not.
asking, no.
I am in Puerto Rico on my
Oh,
10-year anniversary. So as
Oh,
much
okay.
as fun as that sounds, I will not be there.
Good call.
Any other member?
What night? When? Talk
Uh,
again?
S- September 12th, to the board at the work session. We're trying to get you on as first on the agenda.
Good. Yeah, it's not great. Maybe is all I can say.
Okay.
What time is the meeting?
6:30.
Yee. Maybe. Let me look and see if I can get back to you on that one.
Send out an email and see if anyone's interested, LaShonda. And I told you I can't make it that September 17th meeting, I think, right? Okay.
Yes.
All right, cool. All right, guys. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Have a good night.
See ya.
Thank you.
Reach out to LaShonda if you want to have a party on the 12th at 6:30.